Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. Glad you could make it. We all made it. You made it, so it all is working good so far. That's how it should work. Anyway, yeah, we're glad to have you. Glad to have you. Glad to have H.D. Jones with us.
Glad I could make it.
Yep, since you're supposed to be here, it's good that you showed up. This is called the Three Preachers series on Mike the Baptist. We have three preachers. H.D.'s one of them. That's the end of that story. I don't have anything else.
Amen.
Amen. Across the table is Michael Kuntz.
Hey, Jackson.
Kuntz is also a preacher. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Always good to see you. I understand that you are going to start presenting to us a different Disney shirt.
Yes, and if you will notice, for the observant viewers, this actually started 2 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
So
see, I'm not even watching it that close, so...
Yeah, we'll go through the collection.
Okay, it's going to be interesting to see. Because I know there are a few nosy people that watch the video who are looking for different things. Well, and they know who they are.
It will be a treat for them.
He has some that he got when he was 12, so they look like tube tops now. But
yeah, they're going to be. That's going to be interesting.
I'll sit a little lower on those days.
Anyway, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Whatever shirt you got on. I don't remember seeing that one, but I may have before. But
maybe.
Anyway,
there's a mouse on it.
Mm-hmm. And Neil Andrews is here.
Hey.
Good to see you.
You too.
Back freshly from Ireland.
Yeah.
We may ask a question about that shortly.
Oh.
We'll see. Or if we don't, you can just interject something once in a while, that refers to that. Anyway, went on a mission trip with some musician folks, and I was going to go, but didn't get to, and I hate missing out. And Ireland is probably safer because of it, but anyway, next time I'm going. But yeah, I've heard some stories that it was really a good thing.
It was.
A good time, and good things happened over there, and you got to experience another culture and how they view things. That's always good, I think. Go to Arkansas with me sometime. Speaking of experiencing different cultures.
Culture. Yeah.
Anyway, we give them a hard time if they're good. But anyway, it's good to have you back safe and sound.
Thank you.
Good to have you here on the program. Comments at mikethebaptist.com. Send us an email. We do get an occasional email now. In fact, I'm always listening to people talk to see if anything we're doing here is catching on or not. And I ran into a lady over the weekend who said, "Hey, I want you to know that my kids want to play Inny or Outty all the time." Well, that's kind of neat. So the only problem with the podcast part of that equation, I think they play it some on their own, just pick out things and do it on their own. But then when it comes time to listen to Mike the Baptist or watch it, they want to fast forward to the Inny or Outty.
So our influence has not shrinkled.
Your influence is not shrinkled one iota.
Very good to know.
Your influence is beginning to span the globe with faint references of belly buttons. So you should be proud. Inny or Outty. Did you get that? I mean, anyway. I'm lost my train of thought now. Anyway, MikeTheBaptist.com. Go on there, find old episodes, past episodes. There's like a lot of them on there now. So if you're taking a trip, speaking of trips.
Good way to waste some time.
Yeah, next week we're going to talk about, on the front porch, about things we do to waste time and pass the time on long trips. I really can't wait for that. I'll have to, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, send us an email, go to the website, look up stuff, buy something, buy a shirt, buy a coffee mug. We'll pay the light bill, fix the refrigerator. The studio refrigerator is down. We're having to resort to ice and a cooler. Go figure. This is America, folks. We should not have to be putting ice in a cooler. Anyway, into that rant. On the front porch today, I thought it would be nice to try and be serious. Because oftentimes, you're out on this program, we have a tendency to not be completely serious, which is fine. I mean, if you're a Christian person and you're not having any fun, something ain't right. I'm just saying. I'm willing to bet Jesus cracked a few jokes. They didn't record them, so we don't, but I'm willing to bet that he cracked a few jokes. Walking down the dirt road and all, and, I'm sure he cracked a few jokes. Probably not like the ones that get cracked here, but yeah, Inny or Outty. And he might have come up with that. He might have just kind of downloaded that into me one night in the middle of the night and said, "Hey, I used to do this with the disciples. It'll be fun." Maybe not. Okay. Anyway, on the front porch today, in an effort originally to be serious, I thought it'd be neat to talk about things we have in our memory about our mothers. My mother was my grandmother, so it's Arkansas. You know how that works. You know, I had a stepdad once, and I knew he was going to be a great dad because he was a great uncle. Anyway, I'll give you a minute to think about that.
Didn't take that long.
Okay. But anyway, I thought it'd be nice to talk about. I never had a stepdad. I thought it'd be nice to talk about things you have in your mind, memories, or just feelings you have about your mother. And I thought it'd be a nice, serious, emotional thing until my friend H.D. Jones walked in the studio today, and he had this gleam in his eye, and I discovered real quick it was not, a fond gleam. It was like an evil gleam because he has something funny he's going to share. So I'm going to make him go last. Matter of fact, I'll start. I don't really have a lot of memories, but I have memories of being in church with my grandmother, who was my mother. My mother passed away when I was 6 months old. So my grandmother was my mother. Mm-hmm. It's a long story, but it's not a long story. But anyway, I have this memory of being a small child in church, laying down on her lap, sleeping and stuff during church. But once in a while,
do that.
Pardon?
So we get some adults that do that.
There are a lot of adults that do that. I would do that right now if somebody would let me, because I've heard most of the sermons that you guys preach. So, but anyway, I have this memory of laying there in these church services, and kind of, I don't know if sleeping or just kind of laying there. But I can recall her taking her handkerchief once in a while, and she would wet part of her handkerchief with her tongue. And then she would clean behind my ear or something. It's like this really odd memory. I think back on it now, and she was being loving and caring and all that, but it's just such an odd memory in my mind. But anyway, she was a really hard worker. Most of the times I can remember her. She's sitting around canning green beans. Sewing up quilts, digging around in a garden, digging potatoes and pulling weeds just like anybody else. She was really worked. She worked hard. But then she had this great cackling laugh, and she loved to laugh. Her and my granddad both. They were happy people, and they laughed a lot. They cut up a lot, and she was just always ready to laugh. So that's about as emotional as I get. Right there, but I just have those couple of things in my memory about her. Really, really fond feelings, though. Really fond feelings.
Is that where the phrase "a little wet behind the ears" come from?
You know what? I don't know. But now that you've said that, that's in my head, and that will be in there for.
You will have to ask
going to be
on that later.
Rattling around there for the rest of my days.
You're welcome.
Wet behind the ear. That's what that means. Okay, Neil?
Yeah.
What do you have for us?
A lot of things, but let me see. I remember it seems like we spent more time with my grandmother, which was my maternal grandmother, so we spent a lot of time with her. And my mom was she cooked a lot. My grandmother cooked a lot. She was a farmer. And they grew probably 7 or 8 crops, different things, because if one of them wouldn't succeed, they needed the other ones to do that. And they raised cattle and they raised hogs and all of that. But my mom's cooking was not like my grandmother's.
Uh-oh.
It was different than that. And I remember my first experience with Brussels, which my mom got them out of a can, and then she boiled them. And it smelled like there was a new baby in the house that had.
Wow.
It was
a picture.
Really awful. And she did unusual things like that, but she always did desserts really well. And she made lemon pie. That was my dad's favorite thing. And she would take lemon seeds and put them in there just to make sure that he knew it wasn't pretend lemon.
Wow.
So
really?
Yep. Remember that. She worked. in the factory. She got a job in General Electric in the factory and would work, I think it was second shift. Whatever it was, she'd go in at like 9 and be in there until early in the morning, get home. But she liked to have a nice car, so she'd get a new car every 4 years. She'd buy a new one. And that's the story about me learning to drive. She taught me how to drive stick shift, which I'm pretty thankful for. And I could speak about Ireland with regard to that because they do drive on the different side of the road than we do.
So you did experience that over there?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we got to the airport, and we were trying to save money. It'd be easy to get a bus and have somebody drive you around on the bus, but we didn't do that. We got 3 vehicles, and it's a less expensive if you get manual vehicles.
Did you have a driver? You were the driver?
I was one of the 3.
I wonder how many Americans every year get in wrecks over there because they veer off over onto the wrong side of the road.
Well, not that as much as you tend to pull to the left. Because
you run off the road?
You're on the left-hand side of the road. Well, I met with the curb several times.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Some folks in the car reminded me of that, and then some folks in the car decided they'd ride with somebody else because of my driving, I think. Mm-hmm. And then they came back to the car and said, yeah, it's no different over there. So,
Whose car was Katie in?
anyway. Who?
At what point? At which point?
I was... No, it was shared. Everybody was doing that. Anyway,
so your mom was from
had
Ireland.
a Volkswagen.
I missed something there.
We're talking about...
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, she had a Volkswagen, and that was what I learned to drive first, and it was a stick shift.
Right.
And I probably shared this before with the driving thing.
Yes, tearing the mirror off and all that.
That's exactly what happened,
Yes.
Yep. And my mom was so kind about it. And then later on, she had a Triumph TR7 or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah, those are nice little cars.
And I drove that, loved it, parked in the wrong spot. Mom always parked all the way out, and she'd walk. She didn't want anybody parking next to her to... And, of course, I parked somewhere where somebody put a great big dent.
Oh, in a Triumph. That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have got mad about that one.
Yep, she did.
I'm a little angry about it now.
Yeah, well, sorry. But I love her.
So it was her car. The
Yes.
Triumph was your
Oh,
mom's
yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, it was convertible. Triumphs were convertible, right? Ragtop. And
She didn't let me put it down.
really,
Yeah.
I should have been your brother.
Yeah.
We would have put that top right down.
Well, I only did it one time when, I took the car out and I put it down after I was far enough away from the house.
I think I remember you telling that too.
Probably, yeah. Yeah. But she knew because there was dust in the inside of the car.
Well,
It's my mom.
they know things.
They do. They have eyes in the back of their head. Yeah.
My brother and I, when we were very young teenagers, my granddad was a car dealer, used cars. Well, he always had a couple around back because he would pull them around back and he would wash them with laundry detergent and a bucket and spray hoses. That's where he would kind of clean them up. So there's always a couple back there waiting to be processed. And my brother and I, for some reason, thought that we could slip around out there and sit in one of those cars and smoke cigarettes. And no one would ever know. Years down the road, I realized that, you can smell that from about 6 miles away. And we never were hiding anything. I
Yeah.
don't know why I told you that, but it just came out.
All right,
It's about, they know things.
Yeah.
They know what you did. So.
Yeah. Oh, and let me just say as a caveat, everybody riding in the 3 vehicles we had was concerned about the way the drivers were driving.
I'll bet.
It was not just one person.
Yeah, I'll bet.
It was all of us. But it is unusual to be on the right side of the car with the steering wheel and the stick shift on your left,
Oh, yeah.
and you're on the left side of the road.
Yeah, that would be odd.
So every time you turn, you're in the left lane and you turn left and you just hit the curb all the time.
Well, yeah.
Because it's right there.
Yeah, that's odd. I didn't even add that in the equation and thinking about that. I was just thinking about being on the left side of the road. But yeah, I'm going to have to go over there and try that.
Well, you can go with
You
them
can
next
stay
time.
here and try it. Yeah.
I could try it here. All right. Isn't it funny what things you have in your mind about your mom or your dad or
Yeah.
anybody? It's funny, the things that stick in your head there.
Yep.
Okay. Are you through?
Sure.
Koontz? Do you have anything stuck in your head about your mom?
Yeah, a lot of things. So we could go for hours of talking about Mom, I think.
Okay. I don't have a watch, so we have time.
Well, you can always edit it out, too. One thing that I'm always reminded of and grateful of, think about Mom, is how much of a giver she was and how sacrificial she was throughout her whole life. And she did that not just for Dad, but for me and my brother as well. We were poor, so I didn't know we were poor when we were little. But later in life, I learned that, we lived on a budget, and on that budget, my dad had his allowance, Mom had her allowance, and me and my brother, we would get an allowance. And of course, me and my brother, we would spend our allowance. We'd go get our Star Wars figures or our G.I. Joe figures or our comic books and things like that. And before the next allowance would come around, there's something you always wanted. Mom, I found out for years, would always spend her allowance on us, getting us another toy or getting us our school clothes or our books for class and different things like that. But if it was material, if it was time, she was always at the church doing stuff. She was just a giver, absolutely. That was her gift, just giving to other people all the time. So that's a great memory of Mom. And I'll leave with this other just very brief thought, because I think it will set up Pastor HD, because I think we all know where he's going.
I think so.
Mom was the seatbelt of the car when she would drive as well. So we had the ones that we'd put around our waist, but if Mom thought the light was changing and she was going to have to, yeah, that's right, that arm came out and then you were getting, clotheslined in the passenger seat. And even after, we always wore seatbelts anyway, because she made sure the car would not move without the seatbelt on. But even when I was 20 years old, if I rode with her, I was still getting clotheslined in
she
the
was
passenger
still
seat.
putting that arm out there.
So she's just taking care of her baby. What can I say?
I'll just tell you, when I was growing up, my grandparents would go to Washington State every year to pick apples when school was out. There's a bunch of people from my home area that would go out to Washington State, had deals with these farmers or ranchers out there, orchard owners, and they'd go out and work those orchards for a couple months and come back. I'm pretty sure I rode most of the way to Washington standing in the front seat beside my grandfather while he was driving. And the times I wasn't doing that, I was laying in the back window sleeping or something.
Well, we did that a lot on trips.
Yeah.
We had the old Nova and get up in the back of that thing and lay down.
Yep.
Driving to Tennessee is nice and warm.
Yep.
But we had a cousin that got killed when I was like, 9, 10 years old, got killed in a car wreck. And ever since then, Mom was like, you're wearing your seatbelt.
All right. Well, that brought it all down.
Sorry.
Are you through there? Is that the
Yeah, we'll end it on the sad note, I guess.
So she was a giver and a protector, is what I'm gathering there.
Yeah, that's just two of her qualities.
Was she a tough woman?
Nope. Very soft.
Really?
Very soft. Yep.
I want to add another one.
Okay.
Just thought of the. I was thinking because of the car thing for some reason. I remember the last time that my mom paddled me, and she chased me around the house with a yardstick. And I was probably, 12 or 13, something like that. And I'm like, what is she doing? She chased me around the house and she cornered me. And then when she went to paddle me with it, I put my arm up and she broke it on my arm.
Oh.
And she goes, you wait here. I'm going to get another yardstick. And I'm like, I'm not that dumb. You raised me better than that. But that's a memory I have.
Interesting. It's interesting that you raised that arm up.
Yeah. Well,
I'm going to guess you were right around 10 or 11.
it's probably somewhere around there.
Do you want to know why I guess that?
Why?
Because about the same age, I recall Mama used a belt.
Oh.
And I recall a scene in my living room where a bunch of cousins,
Oh, no.
all kinds of kids had been out doing things. And, of course, I probably was being a little bit of a smart aleck. But I got in trouble with her in that living room in front of everybody else, and she pulled her belt out. And all I could think of to do was what you did. I raised up an arm. I'm stopping you. Well, I stopped it for a second, but that's about all it lasted a second. I mean, I think I was hit with everywhere you hit somebody with a belt after that.
So was it
It was a
her
flogging.
belt or Grandpa's belt?
His grandpa's belt.
Oh, okay, just making sure on that.
And I don't know if he was grinning or not, but I know when she wanted it, he just pulled her out of there and handed it to her. He had her unbuckled in her hands pretty quick. Oh, okay. HD, do you have any interesting stories
I do.
about your mother?
My mom, she's always just kind of a funny lady. I mean, she had her own business, and she always struggled with, am I a good mom? Do I spend enough time with the family and all that kind of stuff? But the things that we did together, something comical always happened. So right now she's in the process of maybe having to have back surgery. And my sister went with her to the appointment, and she was a little concerned that, not for my mother, but this could be genetic, right? So, you always ask,
Right.
Y'all had cancer. Could this come to me? So, my sister said, is this genetic? And the guy said, no, it's more wear and tear. And we kind of laughed about that because Mom always had on high heels. It didn't matter. She was kind of a Dolly Parton-ish kind of person, She just wanted to wear high heels. So I remember as a kid, she wanted to move some furniture at her office or something, and Dad was busy, and she says, well, I'm taking your truck. Well, it's an old F-150 white pickup
With
truck
a manual transmission.
with a manual transmission. And my mom gets in there with her high heels and her Daisy Dukes on, and she's over just grinding those gears, as we're going down the road. That's just, Mom was just funny like that. And they used to kind of give her a hard time about, they called Mom and Dad Green Acres because they were kind of like that, Dad was very country, Mom was very city life. So she decided one time it'd be fun to take all of us kids to go down to Opryland theme park. Well, they had a little petting zoo in there, and sure enough, Mom didn't really like animals, and a goat came up and peed right on her foot, you just can't miss stuff like that. And then
He never disappoints.
I know, right?
No, he doesn't.
No.
And then
I can visualize that
Mom-
with your mom. Yeah.
Mom, again, kind of that Dolly Parton-ish, so she always had big blonde hair. And back in the day, especially in like the 70s, if you didn't have enough hair, you'd wear a hairpiece in the back. So my mom has one of these hairpiece things on, and she's sitting in the choir in front of the whole church. And the dude that's behind her has a big Western cowboy belt buckle on.
Oh,
So
no.
when he
I
stands
see this
up,
coming.
he stands up before she's gotten up out of her seat. That hairpiece sticks right there on his buckle. Everybody's cracking up, and Mom's looking back like, of course you can't just grab it. so yeah,
Story's just growing.
right. So yeah, those are just kind of the things I remember. Wow, it was fun.
Yeah.
More pieces to the puzzle all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like how it went, I have this fond memory of,
Yeah.
loving and then caring, and then his mom's getting her hairpiece stuck in some guy's belt buckle at church.
yeah. You're welcome.
Was that the only story?
Well, that's good.
That was a good one, I got to say.
we have to save some of these front porch stories for the next time.
Okay, so we may revisit this someday because I don't think you were through.
Probably not.
It seems like there's probably more in there to explore, so we might come back to that. Okay, this was exciting. It's I think we're off to a good start. So what we'll do now, folks, is we'll take a break, come back, talk about stuff we found in the Bible, and try to refocus the best we can. The best we can after a hairpiece getting caught in a rodeo belt buckle at church. It just grows. It's like one of those little sponge toys you buy for kids now, and you put them in a glass of water, and they just the mental image just keeps swelling and getting crazier and crazier. Okay, we'll be back.
Does your mom listen to this?
I hope not.
I hope not either.
You may have seen people wearing Mike the Baptist t-shirts or hoodies lately and wondered to yourself, hey self, where could I get some of that bling bling? Well, tell yourself not to worry, because it's easy to order Mike the Baptist logo tees and hoodies for yourself or your family and friends. Visit MikeTheBaptist.com, click on the merchandise link, and shop away. Lots of colors and sizes to pick from. And now available, I'm Just a Christian Trying Not to Cuss tees and hoodies. Mike the Baptist is all about real talk with real people, spreading the good news to a world who can really use some good news right now. When you purchase Mike the Baptist tees and hoodies, you're helping Mike and the crew pay the bills to keep Mike the Baptist on the interwebs and talking about God's love for all people. It's really that simple. And we make no apologies for having fun and living out the Christian life. Order your tees or hoodies today with just the logo or familiar sayings you hear on Mike the Baptist episodes. Just visit MikeTheBaptist.com and click on merchandise. Thanks so much for watching and listening to Mike the Baptist and for your support in helping us spread the good news. What a great planet.
Hey, I'm glad you stuck around because everybody at the table is going to talk about some stuff we found in the Bible. That's always good stuff. I have come to find out it's always good. Even if it starts out bad, a little rocky, it turns into something good every time. And I have high hopes for it to do the same thing today because the Bible is full of good things. And I think if you just get to talking about it a little bit, it has a way of coming out of there and meaning something. That's what I expect is about to happen. And the preachers are going to lead this part of it. So have at it, fellas.
All right, Jackson. So we're continuing on in our studies about through the book of Hebrews. And we're coming to a passage now that, just like all of the Bible does, it speaks to us today just like it spoke to the people when it was first spoken, a couple thousand years ago or longer than that. One of the topics that we have religious groups struggling with today, like they did thousands of years ago, is trying to earn their salvation. And when you go through the Bible, when you start reading what God has told us about how we get salvation, how we get that through Jesus Christ and through Jesus Christ alone, it's very black and white to us. I mean, he's very clear about how this whole salvation thing happens. But unfortunately, we know there's a lot of people that think they have to earn the salvation or they have to do things in order for them to receive this salvation. I'm just kind of curious with the table today. What are your thoughts? Or do you find it encouraging? And if so, why? That this salvation that we have, that we know we possess today, why do you find that encouraging to you that it's not based upon something that you had to work for or do, and instead it's just really all based upon the Savior Jesus? How do you find, or how are you encouraged by the fact that salvation is not based upon you working?
Oh, easy, because I'm a flop at a lot of things I do.
Right?
I mean,
how many times do we fail?
A lot. Probably more than we succeed. That's just a guess.
Yeah.
It's a good guess, but yeah. So, yeah, that's my initial reaction to what you're saying. If it was, even on the spiritual side of things, if it was based on anything I'm coming up with in my head and trying to make sense of, then I get that wrong a lot too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I suspect we all
you're
probably
kind of unique, I think, within culture, for a lot of reasons. But within culture, don't you think that culture respects people that are self-made? And, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do all that. And accepting Jesus requires you to say, I've got no ability to do anything about this. I have to lay this at your feet. Mm-hmm. And culture would go, well, aren't you, rely on yourself,
Which explains all the self-help books and trying to teach you how to... That category didn't even exist until, I'm trying to remember when it was, like
1978 or something like that. There was not a category called self-help books.
I can kind of remember those starting to kind of come around. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's a fascinating thing. But I just think that our culture has a lot to do with, again, who are you? You're who God says you are. But we tend to listen to the voices that surround us and the way that, you and I had commented about was it Burger King that said, have it your way? Mm-hmm. And it seemed like the entire culture shifted to, you deserve a break today. You deserve this. You deserve to have it your way, rather than recognizing that you're put into a situation where there are all sorts of other people that have different gifts. If I don't know if you need to push the buzzer for that
Sure,
or not,
I'll
but
push it. We haven't
you
used
know,
it yet. Hang on.
thank you. Okay, but everyone's unique, and we need to interact with each other to be like Jesus was, to be Christ-like. You recognize different strengths in different people, so we can't do it on our own from a practical standpoint. But just turning it over is a difficult thing, I think, and saying, okay, you're in charge, and I give it up to you. Does that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of what we struggle with is this self-reliance.
Mm.
You know, if we were to really stop and ask ourselves, how are we physically born? We didn't have anything to do with that. And yet we're so into our physical being, like we're creating our own brand. We're going to be, this is who I am. But we really had nothing to do with our beginning. And I think that's why Jesus uses that analogy when Nicodemus comes to him. You know, Jesus says, you must be born again. And this whole idea of salvation, you know, how do we get it? Do we hold on to it, or does it hold on to us? And I'll be honest with you, in this week's readings, chapter 6, I want to just point out a couple of things, because it's difficult, because the writer says, therefore, leaving the elementary message about the Messiah, let us go on to maturity, not laying again the foundation of repentance from dead works, faith in God, teaching about ritual washings, laying on of hands, and the resurrection of the dead, and eternal judgment. And we all do this if God permits. For it is impossible to renew to repentance those who have once been enlightened, who tasted the heavenly gift and became companions with the Holy Spirit, tasted God's good word and the powers of the coming age, and who have fallen away because to their own harm they are re-crucifying the Son of God and holding him up to contempt. And so you read that, and to be honest with you, it almost sounds like I can gain my salvation and I can lose my salvation. I'll be honest with you, as I read through that, I had to go back and pull some commentaries and go, okay, let me look at a bigger picture here, because if you just read those few verses, you can get caught up in that. But you read further down in this text, and he gives this illustration of a body of land. And if we were in an agricultural society, we'd understand this more. But if you go out and clear a garden spot and you plant and it rains and it produces good fruit, then you're happy with it. If you do all that work and it rains and it produces thistles and thorns, then you might just be perturbed with it, and you know, we'd say turn it under, just turn it under and start over. But in those days, what they would do is burn the field, get rid of all that old vegetation, and we'll start over. The key there is that the land is not done. The vegetation is done, but the land is not lost, so to speak. And so I think what this passage is teaching us is that we're not going to lose our salvation, but we might disqualify ourselves for ministry. We might disqualify ourselves for receiving some of the blessings that we should have received. Because if we're truly saved, we're not going to lose that salvation because we didn't gain that salvation. It's his salvation that he came after us. But what we can lose is we can lose some of the benefits of our salvation. We see this all the time in our families. Your kids wanted something for Christmas, and you're wanting to give them that for Christmas, and all of a sudden they make C's and D's on their report card, and you might be like, yeah, not now. Not now. You're not going to get that now. Or you don't get to go to the ball game tonight because you didn't get your homework done. So it is difficult as we struggle with this idea of salvation, but it should make us more comfortable to know it's really not in our control. Not that we shouldn't work towards it, not that we shouldn't try to do good things, but if it's in our control, then let's be honest, then we kind of sit in the power position of God. Can God not save me out of my own sin and hold me even if I want to let go? Years ago, we took a trip up to Washington, D.C., and my youngest child was at that age, just kind of rambunctious and everything. And we walk into the metro, and of course you got all these rails that are electric, you know. And I was just scared to death he was going to fall down in it. So I had a tight grip. And I remember the whole trip he's just pulling against me, but he wasn't going to get away from me, because if he could get away from me, he could get hurt. How much stronger is God to say, you're not going to be able to get away from me, even when you try. I'm not going to let go of you, even when you let go of me. That gives me security, not to just live like I want to, but it lets me know I have a Father that loves me more than I love myself, more than I can love him. And it kind of gives me some security there.
And it's all, we've got his promise.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not based on us at all.
Right.
It's all this salvation is all based upon his promise.
Yep.
And he won't let us go. Man, that's awesome.
That is pretty good. When I was a much younger man, I drew a comic strip for a while. I let that flop too. That was taking off pretty good. I don't know what happened, but it's called Scribblings. And I remember writing one week out there where this kind of hippie-ish scribbling guy named Jesse, he's kind of one of the main characters, but he was bragging to his friend and said, "I'm a self-made man." And his friend never looked up from his newspaper. He just said, "Jesse, that's what you get for hiring cheap labor." That's what I was thinking about when you're talking about, you know, you're us thinking we can make something out of something. But, you know, when you get involved in the whole faith thing and believing in God and especially giving yourself over to that, you really quickly realize you're not in control of much of anything. And if you are, you should let go of it.
Right.
Because the human story is a failure one after the other when they're trying to do things on their own.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's great. It's a great promise. I have in my mind this picture of a freedom that I didn't used to have, too. When I was not a Christian and thought I was a free man, I was not. When I became a Christian, inside this wall, or these walls, I guess, of God's layout for you, I have tremendous freedoms within those. Tremendous freedom, more freedoms than I ever had before. And it's because of that safety and the security you're talking about, I think. Because when that part of you is satisfied, it's like, well, okay, so I'm free to live. I'm going to go live. So if you see me laughing and cutting up, that's why. The other part is settled. Now, on the outside of me, you may say, I don't know if that's settled or not, Jackson, but trust me, on the inside, it's settled. So outside still got a little work to do, but
We're getting there.
we're working on
There
it.
you go.
Yeah. I was going to say one more thing about what you were commenting about there. There's a tendency, people will go as far as they can. They'll go as far as they can when there's no boundaries. And that's why it's important to establish a boundary in relationships and everything like that. Because, and you can look at pets, you look at a dog, you know, they like to know where their boundaries are, and you give them a cage that's too big and they don't like it, but you give them one that's smaller and they can lean up against the side of it, or they kind of stretch out and fill it up.
And they seem content.
Yes, yeah, and we'll do the same thing too. You watch the difference between children that have no boundaries at all and the other ones where boundaries are established, and that's very, very important thing. Same thing in marriages. You know, you need to have that. So what I was going to ask about was, we look in the Old Testament, and you know, there needed to be mediation between God and man. You can't approach God and directly engage with God. There had to be a mediator. And in the Old Testament, we had the Levites, the Levitical priest system. I'm so sorry. I'm so articulate, aren't I? But you had the priests, and that's what Jesus replaced, was that part of that system. So what is it that makes Jesus better than having a priest be a replacement, for Jesus? Why is Jesus the best choice in that? Is that worded?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I think it kind of goes back to our last point as well, because the promise is all based, is God's promise. It's so much better than man's promise.
Right.
So, they were relying upon human beings to be the mediator before, and we know how human beings are. We fail miserably all the time. Even as Christians, we fail miserably. We're always messing up, or we could have the wrong answer or whatever, or intentionally do something wrong. But when it comes to Jesus, and we know that Jesus never messed up, he never did wrong, he never gave a wrong answer or anything like that. How can it just can't get any better than that? So, I mean, he's like, in Star Trek terminology, he's light years ahead of what a human priest could do. And so, yeah, it's pretty sweet.
I have an odd question. Surprise. Did Jesus think? I mean,
Did he think, or did he just know?
No, did he ever think, not bad thoughts, but did he ever think? I wonder if he got mad in his mind and caught himself. I don't know why I'm thinking about that. It's just like, well, I know I'm thinking about that because your question was what makes Jesus, I guess, more palatable to us than a priest, because we can approach him directly. And the priest was this guy where it had the answers, and you had to go through him and then wait. But the way it's set up now, we can go directly. So that was the difference to me. So, but I'm wondering, it's a relatable thing to me. My understanding is I can relate to Jesus because he showed up on the planet just like me, and he went through stuff just like me. And, I asked earlier, or said earlier, I bet he told jokes just like me. And if he was human, he's human. It just dawned on me. I mean, I wonder if he had a, I don't know what the right word is. You don't want to say Jesus had a mean thought, but could he have had a thought but not acted?
We know he was tempted.
Right.
And if
if
he was tempted, he had to have thought about it because he responds with Scripture. So he had to think back to that Scripture to attack the temptation. So, yeah, he had thoughts, but they were under his control. He didn't lose control of his thoughts, which is where
like we do.
Yeah,
he didn't fall into the sin.
Yeah, he didn't
because
fall
of the temptation.
Yeah. Matter of fact, being tempted is not a sin.
Exactly.
So you know what? This is not an irreverent way to talk about this, because there are people who are afraid to talk like we're talking right now. But there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
I mean, you need to think about him in.
I mean, it's hard to
terms.
understand fully God and fully man, but it's interesting as we've read the Scripture this week and looked at some of these questions. One of the things that kind of struck me is what happened in the garden was Satan, an angelic being who was more powerful, attacked Adam and Eve, flesh, because they were weaker, and he won that battle. God knew that was going to happen, and God had already established the Levitical priests and the sacrificial system and all that stuff. But why did God do that? I mean, could God not have just said, I'm going to sprinkle everybody with fairy dust and you're going to be saved, or I'm going to pour some RC Cola over you and you're going to be saved? I mean, he could have done any number of things. But doesn't it just seem like God to say, Satan, I'm going to beat you at your own game. You attacked flesh and won that battle. I'm going to send my son in the flesh to attack a spiritual battle, and he is going to win. So it's kind of like drop the mic. He says, I'm playing at your game, but I'm going to win at the game, and I'm going to redeem that which belongs to me. So that, to me, is the thing that Jesus does for us. He is the God-man, but if he doesn't become man, then it's not a bloodshed way to pay for sin. It's not the sympathetic Christ that knows our weaknesses. He becomes us, like us, so that we then have that opportunity to become like him. Not that we'll ever be gods, but to redeem our flesh, he had to be flesh.
Well, and for us to relate.
Absolutely.
That had to happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, we'd be sitting here talking about this thing out there somewhere
Yeah.
that we can't relate to,
Yeah.
really, other than, you know.
And how crazy is it to think that one day in heaven we will be standing in the presence of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, but we will have a connection with God the Son that no other created being has. The angels were not saved by Jesus becoming an angel. The animals aren't saved by Jesus becoming an animal. We're going to have this connection with him that's different than any other created thing. And it's going to be different than our relationship with the Spirit, and it's going to be different than our relationship with the Father. Sure. So there's something unique about it. But that kind of led me to thinking about some other things when we talk about the Old Testament. You look at all these sacrifices they had to make, and it was redonkulous. I mean, there's 5 different types of sacrifices in the Old Testament. There's burnt offering, grain offering, peace offering, sin offering, thanksgiving offering, trespasses offering. There's all those things that they had to do. Then there's voluntary type sacrifices. And then there were sacrifices just in case we missed anything. The Day of Atonement is literally about going in to beg God to forgive Israel for things that didn't even cross their mind. You know, I think about that sometimes in church. You've challenged us at church to just come up to the altar and lay a sin down. That's important. And you could, you know, all of us in our life, we could pick one right now and go, yeah, I need to go lay that down again. But how many things have I done that I didn't even know I did, or didn't do that I don't know that I didn't do? And Christ is going to forgive us of all those things because he's the perfect sacrifice. So really that thought is, how bad is our sin? Yeah, how bad is really your sinfulness?
You know, it's so bad that God said he has to be separated from it for all of eternity.
Yeah.
I mean, you
That's a
think
good point.
about when we're raising our children, and I think you just mentioned this recently. You have to send one to their room for disobeying. And we have to send one of our kids off to their bedroom. Maybe they have to miss supper or something like that. And that separation, because of disobedience, we have to have a separation until we can get them to acknowledge and repent of that wrongdoing so that we can restore this fellowship between father and son. Sin is so bad that God says it has to be put away. If you won't let Jesus pay for that sin, I can't even have you near me.
Yeah.
I wonder why God allowed sin to stick around.
Long suffering? I think that's a good Bible word for that.
Well,
Yeah, the question I think is,
you can go ahead and explain. I just had to.
I think
buzz
it's
it. It's in the
relevant.
book.
Brother Kuntz over here, he hadn't been at the church long, and Miss Becky invited us to come and sit down with some 5th graders and 6th graders, and that was one of their questions. If God is all-knowing and righteous and good and holy, and he knew Adam and Eve were going to sin, why did he ever create them? You know, and there's just some things about God that we don't understand, but we do know this, that in his perfect plan, he loves us in a way that is perfect. And there are things about this world that we don't understand. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? But God's working his plan, and he's still in control. And he didn't design sin, but he uses it. And he uses it for his glory and our good. There's coming a day when we will praise him for casting sin away from us forever. We will praise him for that because, you know, we've kind of been really open and honest about ourselves as Christians. We're not perfect, and we're still working on it. And you kind of think sometimes, well, if I got really saved, I've heard people say this before. Oh, I got really saved this time. You know what? You walked out and you sinned again. Because in this world, we're still going to struggle with our flesh. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited about one day that I'm not going to have those thoughts.
You don't have to worry about it anymore.
I don't have to. I won't even
about
have to worry about those thoughts. They're not going to come into your head. You're not going to. I mean, if somebody dropped a nickel on the floor, you're going to go, "Hey, you dropped a nickel on the floor." You're not even going to think about putting it in your pocket. So yeah, it's hard for us to understand, but God uses sin. He knew it was coming. He allowed it, so it has its purpose.
I guess maybe we don't have to understand everything.
No.
Evidently. You know, a lot of people, I think, drive themselves kind of nuts when they get involved in the Christian faith because they want to know. They want to know the answer. Mm-hmm. I want an answer. I got to know, and it just drives people nuts. Years ago, when I was teaching adult Sunday school for a good period of time, I recall one individual that was there, and it just worried him to death. The whole predestination thing, it just worried them to death. They just couldn't get settled in their mind and couldn't be comfortable because they didn't know. They had to know. But if you fool with this very much at all, you realize pretty quick you're not going to know a lot of it. You're just going to have to settle. You just going to have to be settled with it.
Yeah.
So, but I guess that's what trust and faith in God's all about, isn't it?
Yeah. Jesus talks about having a childlike faith, and I think about my grandkids now. We're at that wonderful age where the grandkids walk in, and the younger they are, the less they worry. The older they get, they begin to, did you lock the door, Papa? I want to make sure the boogeyman's not under the bed, Papa. The 2-year-old, I'm not worried about any of that. They don't worry about what they're going to eat, where they're going to sleep, who's going to clean them up when they mess their pants.
I knew that was coming.
They don't worry about it. I mean, they don't. They're just living life, and they have this really sense of just trust. And
but just as a caveat, I've heard that phrase used in churches about having a childlike faith. That does not mean, this is my opinion, but it's right. That does not mean that you don't have to learn anything about it.
No, it doesn't mean an ignorant faith.
Absolutely not. No, it does not mean ignorant. I just want to point that out. And you can explain it. You're the preacher, so
no,
you
but it's not
it.
it's not an ignorant faith. I heard a guy say one time, and I really like this statement, so I'm going to use it. He says, if your faith can't be tested, your faith can't be trusted. It's okay to ask the hard questions. It's okay to want to understand, but at the end of yourself, I'll give you a great example. We don't like the struggle. We just don't. We don't like the struggle. We don't like to hear people having health problems or financial problems. We don't like to hear that. But God uses the struggle. For example, a worm that goes into a cocoon that's trying to become a butterfly, it's the struggle for them to get out of that cocoon that causes them to be strong enough to fly. If a man decides, hey, I don't want that little worm to struggle, and he cuts open that butterfly will die. It will not survive. It's kind of the same way in birth. Going through the birth canal is a difficult process. It's hard on mama, it's hard on baby, but it gets the baby's blood pressure up. It does all these things that the baby has to struggle to live. When you take a child out by cesarean section, they have a lot more problems with breathing. They have a lot more problems with their blood pressure. They have a lot because they haven't had to go through the struggle. Mm-hmm. And so the struggle by design is there for us to make us be who God's designed us to be.
My gosh, man, that's the most intelligent thing I've ever heard you
All right.
explain.
We're done with this section?
I mean, I'm
Come back for any
I was just going to
impressed.
say, that's really prolific. Seriously.
it
I don't even know what
is.
prolific means, but
No, I was not joking there.
it's a
I'm
big
not joking.
deal. Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
I don't mean to act surprised.
oh, well,
but
you're welcome.
it was really good. That was really
Thanks
good.
for that Mountain Dew earlier.
You're welcome. No, you don't think about, interesting. Very interesting. See?
Wow.
You just start talking about it and wow. Where did we start?
Yeah, we started back in Hebrews. Talking about how we can trust Jesus for our salvation.
Yeah.
Really.
And not yourself.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where
And
it
not-
all started?
It's not about us. It's about
Yeah, the whole book
What
of
he did.
Hebrews is about Jesus being superior. He is superior than Moses. He's superior than the angels. He's superior than the Levite priest. all the prophets and all the kings, because he fully fulfills all that God had intended for him to fulfill. All those other things are a foreshadowing of who Christ was going to be, and so that's why we celebrate who Christ. Why do we say these things? Like, oh, if you don't know who Jesus is, you can't know who the Father is, because he's the ultimate. He's the ultimate key to our relationship with God.
This word saved, if you were explaining to somebody how to be that, but you didn't use that word because that word's hard to understand if you're not already that, does that make sense? Somebody who's not involved in a lot of this, who might actually be listening to us yap right now about this, I always like to throw that out there, that how easy it is to become involved in this. Because there are people that, I think back when I was looking, but I wasn't. And I came across things like on the radio and things that kind of stopped me in my tracks and made me think. And I'm always aware that what we're up to here, there may be somebody that does that stumbles upon that. And I like to have an opportunity to explain how you do that. But I know that some of those churchy words like saved, I'll just buzz it because it's kind of churchy. We use it, but we all versed in it, and we've been through it, and we've experienced it. I was talking to a good friend of mine today or yesterday, one of the two, about testimonies. And they mentioned to me that your testimony is not about from the day you were born until today. It's not a story about your life, is what they're telling me. And I thought, that's pretty profound. Like right now, if I were talking to that person we're talking about that, may not be versed in this, but is kind of curious about it, or kind of got that, tug on them. If I were testifying to them, I'd be telling them about what happened to me at that moment. That would be my testimony. I thought that was pretty profound, what they told me. It made me think. Anyway, how would you explain this to somebody that either is kind of put off a little by that word saved, or just doesn't know what it means, but they're curious? I mean, three preachers, surely one of you guys.
Jesus said, all right, his own words to us were, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No one comes to the Father except by me. Okay, so we've talked about sin today, and sin can have nothing to do with the Father. So for all of eternity, God's going to be in heaven. That's going to be his dwelling place. Heaven is where he's at. You can't get access to that if you've got this sin stuff in your life. Jesus told us, okay, first of all, I'm the way. He didn't say I am one of the ways or multiple ways. Jesus said, I am the only way. He says, and what I am truth. I'm the way. I'm telling you a truthful thing here. You can't get to God except by me. I am the life. That is that everlasting life. That if we would trust in just trust Jesus, we can have that eternal relationship with God and have our sins taken care of.
So somebody would actually have to take a step toward that.
Yeah, they have to believe.
Like we were talking originally, how we can't really do anything ourselves without messing it up. So this is that point you come to, I guess, in your life where you kind of begin to realize.
You got this crossroads, don't you?
Yeah, whatever I'm doing ain't working. I'm screwing it up all the time, over and over. So whether you understand it or not, and if you're at the crossroads, perhaps it's time to just kind of veer down that one and see what's down there. Yep. Is that a good way to say that?
I think so.
Give it a shot. Okay. Are we happy?
Happy.
All right.
There you go.
If you're happy and
We'll take a break, come back, play Inny or Outty.
You'll never hear us say at Mike the Baptist that you need our logo t-shirts or hoodies. Just like you wouldn't hear us say that you need Barry White music. But now that Mike the Baptist has logo coffee mugs? We are a little tempted to point out that coffee would only have to taste better out of something that special, or a good hot cocoa, or a rich, smooth cappuccino in one of those brand new 11 or 15 ounce coffee mugs with that warm and inviting Mike the Baptist logo with the fake neon lettering. No, we'll never tell you that you need stuff, but we might remind you that it's not a sin to buy stuff like that, and that a little of the money you spend goes toward keeping Mike the Baptist on the air and in your head like a good Barry White album turned up to 7 while you do your taxes or trim those hedges. Find out more about the new logo coffee mugs and our t-shirts and hoodies with funny little sayings and our logo at www.mikethebaptist.com/merchandise.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. Here's
I was
Mike.
telling the guys earlier. Did I tell this on tape or did I not? That their kids were playing Inny or Outty. Yeah, we're using the old tape.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, that's a green room.
Green room discussion.
Okay, well, someone approached me Sunday and said, "Hey, I just want you to know that my kids play Inny or Outty. We play Inny or Outty, and I think they have their own version of it that they do." But she said that at the podcast, the kids always want to fast forward to that part of it. So they may be missing the Bible talks and some of that, but they want to go. But I think that's a neat thing. I think it's just kind of fun that they would do that.
So you tell them they need to eat the message just like they would eat their vegetables before they get dessert, right?
Yeah, something like that.
They got to get through the message to get to the fun stuff.
Yeah, all these picturesque things everybody's saying. HD said, "Pour RC Cola on everybody." I'm going like, what happened in your house, right?
We don't want to know all those stories.
So in the power seats today, we're laughing because we just did this whole section and I didn't hit record. So now we're going back and we're going to do it. But you didn't have to know that. But there you go. We full disclosure here on Mike the Baptist. Transparency. We want you to know the truth.
We're not perfect.
We're not perfect. Absolutely. In the power seats today, Michael Kuntz and H.D. Jones. Not because they're that powerful. It's because they showed up with an Inny or Outty to give us, and Neil and I were not quite ready for that, but we'll be there.
Neil was in Ireland for 10 days, and
he did.
You were taking a nap.
I was. I was taking a nap while Neil was
serving God in a
foreign
foreign land
on a mission trip way, way off somewhere, and I was thinking about God in my recliner.
Anyway, I did this much better the first time around, but if I remember my thought process,
yes. Let me mention real quick before you get there.
Okay.
I'm trying to recreate what we did there. Okay. The reason that HD is prepared is because he spent a vacation or something, and all he did was
sabbatical. That's all I did.
Put bank in the bank for Inny or Outty.
It was like I got to stump these guys,
Yeah.
So
we'll all go with you on your next vacation, so you have something to do. Okay, so what do you got?
Names are important in the Bible.
They are
very important.
Oh, they are.
Yeah, we're very privileged to have two Saint Michaels here at the table because Michael,
you sure are,
the archangel.
Yeah,
he's mentioned in the Bible, so I'm sure that's who y'all are named after. Y'all are very angelic.
And in all those old paintings of Bible characters, you'll notice when they had a painting of Michael, it had those whiskers like Michael Kuntz has.
Michael was pretty cool. Let me just say,
that was King Tut.
He was.
He's cool.
Or they had on a cap like this.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
We know that Hodo is not in the Bible.
Hodo's not in there.
And then Neil pointed out that his name is in the Bible, but it's not N-E-I-L.
Well, it's
K-N-E-E-L.
Yeah. So
hey, didn't something happen to you the first time you had an invitation at a church?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what was that?
Yeah.
We're recreating here. We're trying to. What happened, Neil?
I was playing some soft background music, and the pastor was offering the invitation, and and he went through some things, and he said, if you're feeling like you'd like to come front for prayer, come down front to kneel.
Yes.
And I didn't understand why he was having him come down to me. I'm just playing piano.
Neil.
Yeah.
I've got all the answers.
Yeah.
So our other compadre who's not with us today,
Yes.
who I think is at youth summer camp.
I saw where he took off to a camp.
We need to pray for him, but he's very proud of his name.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've talked to him long enough, you'll find out he'll introduce himself and he'll say, it's easy to remember July, August, September, October, November. Jason. Right, yeah.
Neat.
So then my question for
Helps him remember
Panel,
to spell it. Yeah.
right
Okay.
is,
He needs to do something for that last name because it's got all them C's and I's and
is the
Ricardi.
name Jason in the Bible?
Oh, that's good.
That's a good recreation of your. Oh,
Thank you.
Also,
Remember that. I think this is where I realized that it didn't push record. So from here on out, it's actually spontaneous.
Did we do the introduction to Inny or Outty with the recording?
No?
It's a good thing we don't have to explain what Inny or Outty is anymore.
Well, there's no need to. We've done it so long.
Right.
Exactly.
It's simply you throw a phrase or something out, and then you ask whether that's in the Bible or out of the Bible, an Inny or an Outty. That's all it is. It does not require explanation every time.
Right on.
Stop stalling and answer the question.
Jason.
Don't know about the Bible, but he was with the Argonauts.
Now, see, this is not spontaneous because we did get to hear before we hit record, and I actually thought Jason and the Argonauts was a band like from the 60s or something.
It may have been.
And it sounds like it could be. Jason.
Paul Revere and the Raiders, Jason and the Argonauts. Sure.
If anybody's listening, can Google that real quick and then get back with us so we will know the answer.
Yeah,
of
we'd
course,
love to
we won't
talk
know
about
for
it
a
before the
couple of
end of
weeks
the
from
year.
now, but it's hard to explain. My gut says Jason is not in the Bible.
What was the one
but
that
H
stumped us
just
a
gave
couple
me
of
that
weeks ago,
look,
though?
so-
Was it pistachio or pecan? What was it that we were asked a couple of weeks ago?
Pistachio, pecan, and one other nut.
Oh, we had to pick which
Almond.
one was not in the Bible, right?
Yes, we did.
And because we didn't know pistachio was in the Bible.
Right.
And I'm thinking, Jason, come on.
Neil knew it.
Yeah, Neil knew it, and he was over the other side of the world.
You know what's going to happen? Jason is going to be in there, but my gut does not feel like it should be because that sounds like a modern name, doesn't it?
Just like pistachio.
I guess so.
Thank you, California.
Turned out not being modern too. Jason.
Interesting.
Jason, this is a good one. Some of these are really good because they're very tricky. Jason sounds modern.
So does Michael. Even though we've always read about Michael as an angel.
It does sound modern,
But, I
doesn't
mean,
it?
it's the most popular name of the 70s, late 60s, I believe, for boys.
You didn't say if HD was in the Bible.
He said Hodo.
He did say Hodo wasn't in there. We did know that.
We have confirmed.
I know that because I looked it up.
It was not a biblical name.
From the tribe of Cray Cray.
The 13th tribe, eh?
Exactly. Jason, what do y'all think?
Just because he's crazy, I'm going to say it's in there.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going, but I'm watching the video. It's dragging again. It's just driving me nuts. But
I'm trying to think through the lineage in the Gospels. You know,
Yeah, there's a
through each
lot of names in the Bible
Yeah.
that were thrown out there, wasn't it? I don't remember Jason.
one. Or Penelope.
no, I don't remember Penelope.
Well, you never know.
That is
Ask
true.
that next time. Yeah. I'm wrong, but I'm going to guess not.
So we have two knots. And you're saying yes, though.
I was going to say yes. Let's say no. Let's go with
Let's
no.
say no. We're all
We can't think of where it's at.
outie. I think we're all outie.
Yeah, Outty.
Just because we need to get to an answer to move on.
I'm so confused.
Yeah, me
Let
too.
me look at my answer. All right. So Acts chapter 17. But the Jews were jealous, and taking some wicked men of the rabble, they formed a mob, set the city in uproar, and attacked the house of Jason, seeking to bring them out from the crowd. How about that?
Well, we were
Jason's
wrong.
in there.
Jason's in the Bible.
Kuntz was right, but
I was trying to go down the right path, but y'all
we,
persuaded me.
We
Peer
pulled
pressure.
you
You
in.
pulled me to the dark side.
So Jason is in there. That's interesting. I I did not think that.
Let me mark that off my list now before I
There you go.
forget.
Yep, take
bring
that
it
off
back up
the,
next
off
week.
the list. Okay, we are 0 for 1. And this is still dragging. And it's driving me. It's actually driving me a little bit insane.
It'll be good though when we sing.
Yeah. Okay, Michael Kuntz. You're
All right.
now in a position of power, which I know you've always wanted.
Yeah, I've been seeking it my whole life.
Now you've got it.
Thanks. So, it's been a few months ago now, we had a very controversial, and it's still controversial to this day, Inny or Outty, and it was the color brown.
Oh,
Yes,
it went on
yes.
for weeks.
Yeah, well, till this day. But
It
anyway,
still pops up.
so my Inny or Outty for you today is orange.
Oh, really? Have we talked about this before?
I don't think so.
Okay, just checking.
We talked about brown.
We did talk about brown. I recall that.
And it seems like when we talked about brown, we went through colors trying to think about
We probably would have.
what were mentioned.
Where did oranges come from? Is that a Middle Eastern fruit?
Florida.
Oh, that's right. I don't know what I was thinking.
Gosh, pistachios are from California.
Yeah, I know.
Oranges.
There's no other place in the world that things grow but America.
No. I don't recall. Oh, wait a minute, though. When I was growing up, at the Christmas programs at church, you always got an orange in the brown paper bag at the end of the Christmas, which is why we do that at Acoustic Christmas, because it's...
Did you get an apple also?
And a Leo,
Well, sometimes you got
Leo
an apple.
We
peppermint.
got an apple and an orange and candy.
Sometimes you got one or the other,
We always got both.
which, let me just say, when I started doing Acoustic Christmas, I found out how expensive oranges are if you're buying 300 or 400 or 500 oranges.
There's a line item in our church budget
Yep, for oranges.
for the treat bags.
Oh, yeah, for Acoustic Christmas?
Well,
Oh.
just for Christmas.
Oh.
For the bags.
Oh yeah, we got to talk about Acoustic Christmas is firing back up this year, so we got to get back in that budget. Anyway, so the reason I was thinking about that, did oranges come from the Middle East, or were they there then? I don't recall ever seeing that in the Bible. Do y'all? Wait, I can't talk to you. You asked the question.
I think it's in there.
You do?
Yep. And part of me thinks it's in there because he's a UT fan, and he would want it to be in there. But I really think I really do think the color orange. I really do think the color orange is in there.
Do you have an example? I don't even have a gut reaction to this one yet. Or do I?
Well, it's not the
did I?
fruit.
No,
It's
I
not the
didn't.
fruit orange, but I think the color. There's a lot of colors in Revelation. There's a lot of colors.
Temple.
Yeah,
Specifics
Yeah, that's
about
right.
the temple.
that's right. Because you had the blues and the purples, and
Yeah, I
I think
I don't even have a gut reaction right now.
the different
Wait.
stones.
No
Different
gut reaction
stones.
from the Jackson?
Right.
I do kind of, but I'm afraid to say it. My gut reaction is no, but I sense that I'm going to be terribly wrong again.
Is that your other gut talking then?
That's my other gut talking.
Are you a cow?
Hmm?
How many stomachs do you have?
Well, yeah.
Premonitions.
You
She has
just called
premonitions.
Jackson a cow.
No.
No,
I
he's just
just
talking
said
about-
how many stomachs do you have? He's ruminating on it.
Yes. I don't.
prolific.
My gut says no, but I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
Just to keep it lively.
I think it's in there. I really do. I can't quote you a chapter and verse, but I do think it's in there.
Okay, so that's an uneducated guess.
It is.
Neil,
I would say yes because of the options we were just talking about.
the
different-
colors and temples and.
and stones.
Doesn't it seem funny though that those cats back in the Bible days would even say that word, orange? I mean, there are so many great words.
Well, it
If
was
that
they
came up
probably-
said
with.
chartreuse, that would bother me. But
It was probably more
Well,
something
yeah.
like. It just translated into orange.
I know one Hebrew word. You want to hear it? L'chaim. I don't know what it means, but
To
it's
life.
l'chaim.
To life.
To life?
yeah,
Oh, you know another one.
that's from Fiddler on the Roof.
No. That's actually that sound my granddad used to make in a car. It just drove me
Right.
nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yada.
I think the rails are way over there somewhere.
We're so far
Way
off the rails. Orange. I'm saying yes.
He said yes.
Yeah.
We have 3 yeses. Orange is in the Bible, Koontz.
All right, so
According to the modern language translation.
I bet we could find a translation version that has it in there. But
It's the
no,
UT.
It's not.
It's not.
It is not in there. And you're going down the right path because, something like that, those colors, like they would refer to maybe like rust or something like that.
Right.
And that was referring to the color orange. But orange did not become a color word until the 1500s.
Really? Do you have the what actually happened? I mean, who thought it up?
No, I'm not that smart.
Because I'm jealous of people that get to think up words and get them in a dictionary.
And when was the Bible written?
Yeah.
Not 1500?
No.
For the sake of people that just tuned in.
Right. Right. This is true.
Another fine explanation on Mike the Baptist. That's interesting. So my gut was okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We led you astray, Mike.
I'm glad I went ahead and brought it up then.
So look at that.
All right. So we have
We were 2 losers today.
2 complete failures on Inny or Outty. Let us know how your home edition of Inny or Outty goes, because
You might
Send
want
us
to
some
share
questions.
some of yours with us, too.
yes, you might need to
Send
send
us some
yours.
easier questions.
Send yours in. These are getting more difficult, which I am elated about because they're striking up some really good conversations about some of these things now. We started, of course, all of us here just took the first 10 on Google when we first started doing this, and then those ran out pretty quick, and then we had to start thinking a little bit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so anyway, take a break. We'll be back to sing you a hymn and wrap this up best we can.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
Sometimes when you're in a church service and the whole service kind of has a theme, and then the people responsible for putting music together, that'd be you, Neil,
You?
with a K. Sometimes they pre-plan the hymns to go along with what's going on, but sometimes it's just divine intervention, and it
What
just
is that?
happens.
Hey,
Oh, here.
come on.
We're going to give
Now
you
you
the
can hit
buzzer
it.
going
Now you
forward.
can
Yeah.
That's for divine intervention. Thanks for
That
catching
is.
that.
Oh, yeah.
I missed some of those.
Yep.
Well, today it's kind of a combination because it wasn't pre-planned, but during a break, Neil had a divine intervention. It was shortly after I had a gut reaction. Neil had a divine intervention. It's a long story, and Neil said, the hymn we should really do, and kudos for remembering the page, 45 in the Mike the Baptist hymnal, Green Acres. It's the perfect hymn because I think we talked about this earlier. It had something to do with HD's mom, a rodeo belt buckle, and a hairpiece. If you want to know that whole story, back up to the front porch visit and give her a listen. I dare you. And then I dare you to be able to take a nap in peace without that all up there in your head
Visual imaging.
rolling around. We'll sing this hymn for you, then we'll get out of here for this episode of The Three Preachers. My thanks to H.T. Jones, Michael Koontz, Neil Andrews for being here and making this all possible. What silliness. Green Acres is the place to be. Farm living is the life for me. Land spreading out so far and wide. Keep Manhattan, just give me that countryside. New York is where I'd rather stay. I get allergic smelling hay. I just adore a penthouse view. Darling, I love you, but give me Park Avenue.
Da-da-ba-da-ba.
The chores.
Da-da-ba-da-ba.
The stores.
Da-da-ba-da-ba.
Fresh air.
Da-da-ba-da-ba.
Times Square.
You are my wife.
Goodbye, city life.
Green Acres, we are there.
Da-da-ba-da-ba.
Some of you may have to Google that to understand what that was all about. Some of us don't. We were there. Hey, and you were here. Thanks for being here. Hope you got something out of this. Yeah, I hope you got something out of this. We did. Kind of the middle part of this, you usually get stuff out of it. But anyway, glad you were joining us. We'll see you next time on Mike the Baptist. And remember, folks, we are all just Christians.
That's true.
Trying not to cuss.
Yes, thank you so much.
that.
Now we can go. Got several snorts in today, too. I always like them snorts.
Good snorting.
Mike the Baptist.